Hello, everybody. This is Steve Yoder. Welcome to week 5 in Legal Studies 457, 557, Business Law for Accountants, here in the spring of 2024 at the UAB Collatz School of Business. We have an action-packed week for the week of April 8th. And let's get started. First, the answer to our extra credit opportunity question for last week was the well-known company Under Armour. They were shipping things to stores and calling them sales when they really perhaps were being shipped only for testing purposes or were not committed to by the retailers, and they got called on it. And as a public company, they had to disclose that they had gotten called on it by the Securities and Exchange Commission, and they were fined as well, I think, for that. So hopefully they have studied the definition of sale in the Uniform Commercial Code and are going to do better. Here is Module 2, the learning activities for this week, the subject of business organizations. You, as CPAs, will get consulted frequently about the formation and operation of a business organization. And in this particular week, we are going to be looking at the different forms that a business can take, from no form at all, really, just a sole proprietorship, to partnerships, to limited liability companies, and to corporations. Traditionally, entrepreneurs, that is, people who want to start up a new venture, whether it's for profit or not for profit, had three choices: either just go into business and don't create a separate entity at all. That would be called a sole proprietorship, a partnership, or a corporation. There are more choices today, particularly limited liability companies. We will be looking at the concept of a franchise. A franchise is not a business organization. It is a method of operating another a business that has some other organizational form. I suppose it would be possible to be a sole proprietor and be a franchisee, but I think that would be unlikely. But here are the forms of franchises. Automobile dealers distribute automobiles. Fast food chains like McDonald's. And then you can have a method of manufacturing that could be franchised, such as Coca-Cola. And we see an example in the textbook 30.3. The franchise contract is extremely important. If you ever enter into a franchise agreement, you better read that very carefully, particularly for what the territory is that you're getting. You're going to get a big territory that's going to cost a lot of money for McDonald's, and you're going to get a smaller territory that won't cost as much for Subway. We'll be looking at how to form a partnership. There are various types. Chapter 31 starts here. There's an interesting example of a partnership happening even though the two individuals involved weren't quite aware of it in case 31.1. Limited liability partnerships are a special form of partnership often used by law firms, such as the one that I used to work at, Balch and Bingham. Limited liability companies came about in the 1980s or so in all states, and it offers the best of all worlds. It offers the limited liability that a corporation provides for you, but also the tax benefits of a partnership. That is, the entity is not itself taxed. All revenues and expenses and taxation flows through to the owners. I have a limited liability company, Stephen A. Yoder LLC, for the consulting that I do. Corporations is another form that's different from an LLC. They can come in various different types, as you can see here. They are covered in Chapter 33. S corporations remain very common. Many banks over the years have been created as S corporations. There are numerous restrictions there. The advantage to complying with those restrictions is that you get a flow-through tax benefit. Here's an interesting example in Birmingham of a new form of corporation, a benefit corporation. Alabama passed in 2021 the Alabama Benefit Corporation Act that allows you to uh, do business and also do good for the community, as you can see here. Here is the extra credit opportunity for week 5. President Biden gave his State of the Union address about 1 month ago on March 7, 2024. Google and that speech and tell me what he said about what he wanted to do to the income tax rate on corporations, the federal income tax rate on corporations. There is a memo due for those in the Section 557 part of the course. It is due on April 22nd, not too far away. It is perhaps a different form of memo than you've ever done. It is designed to make you tell me your own thoughts and opinions, not to merely recite facts and conclusions back to me, but to tell me what the effect on was you, how you felt. There are detailed instructions in Canvas. Look at what's coming up on April 10, the next client simulation. And very importantly, look at what's coming up on Sunday the 14th, quizzes and our second exam.